Hey, how's it going? It's Malcolm James with the Tactical Den Podcast. Today, I'm here with my buddy Daniel. Today, we're going to be going over helmet setups and kind of like what we're running and all that good jazz. So I'll start off for me personally. Right now, I'm running an old ACH helmet, military issued, and it is a helmet that I personally cut myself. You can use a jigsaw or whatever you want to do and just essentially cut it. And then I cut it into a high cut, and I have some Z-Tac Comtac 2 clones that I'm running for ear protection. I spray painted the whole thing. I threw on a woodland cover, my IR American flag patch here. On the back, I am running a counterweight, just a battery package that I bought for double A's. Threw double A's in there, so if I need to recharge the battery, replace the batteries in my PVS-14s or my Z-Tacs, I can go ahead and do so. My Z-Tacs, I have this Velcro that I put around the cables for cable management, and I put some Velcro on the back of my Ear Pro there as well, just to keep everything nice and compact. On the inside, I'm running the old hammock retention system that's been used by the military for quite a while, and it's been running strong for me personally, and I haven't had any problems with it whatsoever. Right here, I'm running a Nortis Rhino 2 mount. It's probably one of the best mounts that you can get for night vision on the market, I would say.
Yeah, definitely the best, entry grade.
100%. And then I have right here my retention for my nods, just so it holds everything in place and it retains it to my helmet. For my rails, I took some old off-brand arc rails and I cut those, and I essentially epoxied them to the back along with putting this screw through the actual system itself to hold it all in place. So this is a very makeshift DIY sort of high cut helmet that I made out of an old ACH helmet, and so far it's been running really good. So this is a ballistic helmet, and I did the proper technique when cutting it to maintain that ballistic integrity. Use a very fine tip saw when cutting through it, and then on top of that I also epoxied it, and then I used some Flex Seal, and then I took this rubber Flex Seal and I put that around the whole thing, around the entire outside, and then I went and reattached all the rails and have all the padding in there, and everything here is really decent. This revision hammock system on the inside is really good, and I would recommend it 100% if you want that ops core style retention. But yes, that's my helmet setup that I have rocking right here. I'll hand it over to Daniel right now. He can go over his helmet setup, what he's kind of essentially running.
Yeah, absolutely. And your helmet is really nice. Like, feels great, fits great. It's really well balanced.
Appreciate it.
So I have a Hard Hat Veterans bump helmet, and I did a high cut mod on it, which is I took ops core super high cut rails and replaced the regular Hard Hatted Veterans rails because, in all honesty, they kind of suck. And I also put a Team Wendy, I believe it is a cam fit harness in, and I really like that harness. It fits well. It allows you to adjust it. You don't have to have ear protection on to actually hold the helmet on, even with night vision. I'm using as well a Rhino 2 mount that I spray painted, and I really do enjoy it. The only upgrade I can really think I'd possibly do to it is I might get a dovetail adapter so I could run a non-bayonet style mount. For ear protection, I have ops core amp arms with a Bifrost adapter to Comtac Defenders, and I like them. They're pretty decent. It really does help hold the helmet on secure, and I don't end up using the chim strap like ever. And I took my counterweight pouch off, but I usually have a counterweight pouch. I have not painted this helmet, and I just run a Low Pro Apparel Gen 1 scrim on it. I'm not a super big fan of it. I believe there are much better scrims. From personal experience and from friends' experience, I personally prefer the parachuter gear version 2 and version 3 scrims. But I actually ended up spray painting it because it's non-IR compliant. So I spray painted it with tan and green spray paint. And then I added pieces of cut up cami netting. And that actually has really helped reduce the IR signature and really helped break up the outline versus with a regular low profile concept scrim. In my personal opinion, its shapes are a little too uniform and it can be kind of distinct. It still works fine though. It's just personally, in my opinion, it's not my favorite scrim. But
What
yeah.
would you do differently with the scrim? Like if you didn't have to get like a different one and you could just upgrade the one you have, what would you do to it?
If I could get a different one?
If you couldn't get a different one, how would you like change this to make it so it's a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more camouflaged, I would say.
Yeah, so I would probably, I don't know how well this has worked because it is kind of a nylon fabric. And also another quick note is I haven't had it tear, but there are some signs of wear and tear on it, which is to be expected. It is a piece of fabric and it's on your helmet. It gets caught on branches and all sorts of that stuff. But I would probably RIT dye it if I could. I'd put more spray paint on it. The spray paint I did put on is, it wasn't fabric. I'd probably use fabric spray paint, which I did not use. I just used regular Rust-Oleum, tan and green, pretty much.
Yeah. The zero gloss.
Yeah, matte finish.
Yeah.
And it's still there. It actually still does reduce the glow from the IR signature because without it, since this is a Gen 1, the Gen 2s, from what I understand, they have fixed the material issue. But I would say I'd probably just add more netting like this. I would. The other thing is, another thing I'm not a super big fan of, but you can fix with pretty minimal effort, is it's kind of a baggy helmet cover. Especially, I believe this was a large and this is a medium helmet. But I would. I have twist ties on the arc rails and the on the arc rails, and also woven in through the venting system on the helmet to help secure it and keep it bound up a little more, and so it's not as saggy. And for pads, I'm just using the standard pads that it come with. They're pretty decent pads, actually. I really can't complain with how they work. They're comfortable. They do get a bit hot, but that's to be expected. If I could, if I really wanted to, I'd probably upgrade to like the micro lattice vent pads. Those seem pretty cool, and I've used them a little, and they're pretty comfortable. And that's pretty much it for my helmet. And I'm just running the standard hard-hatted veterans shroud.
Right. I haven't heard anything too bad about their shroud. I heard that their shroud's pretty decent.
Their shroud's great. There's no reason, in my opinion, to switch it out. It seems pretty solid. I've used it a fair amount.
Right. I'm using the single screw shroud. A lot of people either hate or they love the single screw. That's what I've been running. I haven't had any problems with it. But then again, the way that it is run is the actual shroud itself is still connected to these screws that are at the front of the helmet. So I haven't had any issues with the way that I'm running mine.
As long as it works.
Yeah, right. As long as it works. Your retention system for your night vision is a little different than mine, made by the same individual. But do you like you said you like the larger clip than the smaller clip? Does it just feel more secure?
I've never used the smaller clip. I've used the larger clip, and I just prefer it because it's a little easier to use just by feel
as well. Yeah,
by feel. Though I mean, with a smaller clip, that is definitely lower profile, and I can see there being advantages. But I personally don't feel the need to change over.
Definitely get it. So with your helmet being like a bump helmet, so what are like some of the pros and the cons that you see running a bump, especially for you personally?
Yeah, well, for me personally, the reason why I didn't buy a ballistic helmet is because I have a bunch of neck injuries, so wearing a helmet can be pretty hard on my head. And also, this was a cheaper option for me, and I didn't feel I necessarily needed ballistic protection because the primary purpose of me buying this is so if I trip and fall or hit my head in some way, which it can happen. I'm not going to say I'm not a klutz, but it can happen to anyone. It can happen completely unexpectedly. and it can have some pretty serious results. And so it was mainly just to protect my head. It was also to be a platform to mount night vision to, and hearing protection. And so I also wanted something that was lighter than a ballistic helmet. I think this thing stock without any, I don't know if the rails really add that much of a difference in weight. I guess they could, because they in my opinion, they're a bit sturdier. And they also, I prefer the locking system because it's kind of it's an industry standard, the M-lock slots.
No one's making M-lock attachments for helmets.
Well, they do, but it's just, there's not as much of a backing, and also I think they look better. I mean, that's 95% of stuff, right? But it was just also the weight.
Yep.
It's a very light helmet. I think it's 1.5 pounds before, you put the mount on, before you put the ear pro on and the everything else. So it's pretty light. Actually, 1.5 pounds sounds a little heavy. I can't remember the exact stats, but it's very light, especially compared to, the full cut ACH.
Yeah. This thing is really heavy. It's not like super or like, oh, it's really heavy. But when you lift it, you're like, yeah, that's a helmet. This is what I felt like a ballistic helmet would feel like. It is quite heavy.
This is much lighter.
It is much lighter. I was, just today I was laying on my back and trying to lift my head up, and it was taking a toll on my neck. It's not like it's not doable, but I could feel it. And I'm like, if my helmet was lighter, this would be a lot easier. I was actually tempted to ditch my helmet due to the weight of it, but it's still, regardless, it still provides me that ballistic protection, which is nice. So there's going to be those pros and cons to whatever one you choose. I like running ballistic helmets just because that's what I'm used to running. So what I run in the military, but it's also what I'm running here on the civilian side, because I like that ability to have that ballistic protection. And then on top of that, looking at those cheaper options, you can find bump helmets for $30, but at the same time, those aren't going to provide you the same amount of bump protection that something like one of these hardhead veterans ones would.
I mean, in my personal opinion, when you have helmets that have you can use a bike helmet to protect your head, but if you're going to try to, mount a night vision shroud on it, or, hearing protection, and if you're going to modify it in that way, if you're going to use structurally sound parts, it's going to cost you a decent amount of money. And the amount of money you save by, having a lower quality shell is, in my opinion, not really that. It's not a worthy trade-off, because what you're sacrificing is you're sacrificing the quality of the, on this helmet, you're sacrificing the quality of the actual plastic hard shell.
Yep.
But on the inside, beside the comfort, padding,
you have your trauma pads. And
you also have, trauma pads, which are rated to stop, blunt trauma of, any nature. And they're pretty effective. Yep. I've sat up into stuff with this thing on, and it's a lot better than sitting up into something without, a helmet on.
Yep.
And so, in my opinion, instead of taking an airsoft or, a bike helmet or a clone helmet in that regard, and sacrificing those performance factors and just, compromising on the quality, I think you're better off to just look for, a used ballistic helmet. And you can find them very affordable. Brand new hard-hatted veterans ATE is, totally serviceable, and I think I got mine for $200 flat.
Yeah, you can get them on sale a lot of times.
Yeah, you can get them on sale, and you can get used Team Wendy's bump helmets on sale, and I think it's just worth having an actual bump helmet versus a knockoff bump helmet.
Yeah, and realistically too, looking at it, if you want a good airsoft bump helmet, it's going to run you about $70. Now, you're thinking about that, you're going to need to upgrade your pads, which are going to cost you a minimum of $20. And on top of that, you're going to need to upgrade your retention system to a good retention system, which is probably going to run you around $100. At that point, you are spending the same amount of money that you would have if you would have just bought a hardhead veterans helmet straight up.
Yeah, and I mean, I would personally replace the shroud in that case, because most airsoft helmets, shrouds are, plastic.
And they're also incompatible with a lot of the mounts that you see nowadays as well. And I can say that from experience, because I've tried to mount not only this, but I've also tried to mount some G24 mounts onto airsoft helmets, and they will not fit. They're non-compatible. Yeah. Especially because of the arc that the helmets have. It's not flat. It's not a real mount. It looks to be a mount, but it's mainly for GoPros and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a mock mounting system. It's not meant. there's a reason why it's, the helmet's $30 and not 200.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's the way that we're running our helmets. That's kind of our thoughts on bump versus ballistics. We could get way more into it, get down this long rabbit hole. We might do that eventually. But for right now, kind of just going into the way we run our helmets and why we run our helmets in this way. Just thought we'd do a quick video on that. So that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys go ahead and follow the channel. But on top of that, check out the Spotify. We got a new episode on there as well. We're really active on Instagram. So go ahead and check that out as well. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys in the next one. One Nation.